Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another video. What we're going to be doing today is we're going to be taking an in-depth look at the AP poll that just came out for our 2024 college football season. This poll just came out today from the AP. It is going to give us our top 25 starting out the regular college football season. So this is the very last preseason poll. So these are the rankings that we'll be going into the 2024 college football season with. Is these teams will be ranked exactly where we are in this poll. We are going to have our reaction to it, break down where every single team fell. Go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe. If you have any comments, drop them below and I will make sure to respond. So the AP poll's coming out. We're going to be looking at the ESPN rankings here, going ranking by ranking, breaking down every single team. And if we think they fell right where they should have fallen, coming in at number one with 46 first place votes, we have the Georgia Bulldogs. The biggest storyline in the offseason has been the Georgia Bulldogs and the Ohio State Buckeyes flip-flopping back and forth. Number one, number two. Well, it looks like Georgia's going to be the number one team when the football season starts at the end of this month. And that's really not a surprise there because the biggest difference between both of these teams, they will both have great offenses. They will both have top five defenses, but the Buckeyes might have the slightly better defense. They might have the best defense in the country, and they'll have a very good offense. But Will Howard just transferred over as the quarterback from Kansas State. But we haven't seen him yet play in this system, in this scheme under Chip Kelly and Ryan Day. So there's still a little question marks there of just how is he going to adapt to this scheme every single Saturday. For Georgia, there's not those questions. You have Carson Beck back at the quarterback position. He just missed 4,000 yards by 50 yards last season. He comes in as number two in the Heisman favorites right now. So the most important position on the field is solidified with the Bulldogs. We know that they're loaded at the skill positions. They have a great defense. So it's no surprise that they're number one. Now, it's also no surprise that the Buckeyes, with 15 first place votes, are just a slight number two. As I mentioned, the number one defense in all of college football. They had the number three defense last year. They bring back 9 starters on defense, and they added a 5-star safety from Alabama. On offense, you'll have Will Howard at quarterback. You have Quinton Junkins. You have Henderson. You have Egbuka. You have Jeremiah Smith. They're loaded up and down the field. This is going to be a very good team. We just want to see them play in their scheme first before we can technically justify them being number one. But 1, 2, it doesn't really matter. Coming in at number 3, we have Oregon getting 1 first place vote. So the Oregon Ducks are just like the Buckeyes and Bulldogs. They have a top 5 roster as well. They have a top 10 offense. They have a top 10 defense. They're moving to the Big Ten this year. A lot of fans in the Big Ten, when they look at Oregon, see them coming from the past 12, they don't think that they can hang in the trenches with the big boys, with the Penn State, Buckeyes, Michigan. But I think you're wrong. This is a very deep team on both lines, on the defensive line, on the offensive line, and they're adding the Dylan Gabriel, the transfer quarterback from the Oklahoma Sooners. He's an early Heisman favorite as of right now. He's probably going to throw for 35 to 40 touchdowns and probably run for 8 to 10 touchdowns. He can throw, he can run. He adds a new element, a new skill set to their offense. They're very deep at wide receiver. And you have a very deep defense that's going to be resuming where they left off last season. As I mentioned, top 10 offense, top 10 defense. Very skilled team, very talented team under Dan Lanning. Coming in at number 4, you have the Texas Longhorns. This isn't really a surprise, them falling to 4, but they did lose a lot from last year's squad. They lost a lot of players on their defensive line. They lost a lot of players on their offense. They lost their running back Brooks. They lost A.D. Mitchell. They lost Worthy, first round wide receiver picks in the NFL draft, but still they work the portal hard. Sarkisian's one of the best play callers in all of college football. Their offense is going to be good. They're probably going to have a top 25 offense, top 30 defense. Very talented team, a top 10 overall roster in all of college football. They're moving to a new conference, the SEC, but they're coming over there on a high note right now, having made the playoffs last season. Very talented team, very deserving of the number 4 spot. Coming in at number 5, we have the Alabama Crimson Tide. So not much of a fall off with Nick Saban retiring. Kalen DeBoer, great hire, great coach. The biggest thing here, they lost 42 players on their roster to the NFL draft and to the transfer portal, but Kalen DeBoer has been working overtime. He's been working the portal. He's been working recruiting. They're 1-2 every single season in recruiting, and they also have a top 5 transfer portal class this offseason. So everyone that Kalen DeBoer lost, he just picked up a player that can match that skill level at any single position on this team. With the offense, you have Jalen Milroe coming back at the quarterback position. He is a top 5 favorite right now for the Heisman. He loves the deep ball. Kalen DeBoer loves to go vertical and throw the deep ball. So they're going to pick up right where he left off with the Washington Huskies. This team, to me, they're going to be going 10-2. I think that's a pretty fair bet for them to go, and they're probably going to make the playoffs. For a lot of these teams, I do have predictions videos too for every single one of these teams where I go over their whole schedule, trying to predict where they're going to fall during the regular season. After that, at number 6, we have Ole Miss. So the Ole Miss Rebels. This is Lane Kiffin's team. They have owned the offseason. They've been getting a lot of offseason hype. They were number 1 in the transfer portal. They added a lot of offensive skill. They're going to have a top 20 offense, easy. For the defense, they're not going to have a great defense, but they're going to have an above average defense. And that's really all that they need to succeed and to make the playoffs. If the game turns into a shootout, they can technically score with any team in the country. If there was ever a year for the Rebels to make a run in the playoffs, this is the season. This is a senior team, so they have to win it now. Coming in at number 7, we have Notre Dame. So Notre Dame added Riley Leonard, the transfer quarterback from Duke. They also added the offensive coordinator, Ken Denbrock, coming over from LSU, where he had the Heisman winning quarterback. They're going to have a much improved modern day offense. But it all comes down to, is Riley Leonard going to be able to stay healthy? Will his ankle hold up? We know they're going to have a great defense. They have a top 10 defense every single season. They're bringing back a lot of starters. They're going to have a good run game. They're going to have a good offensive line, and they're going to have their best wide receiver core that they've had in a long time. And they don't have a tough schedule this season. They can easily walk into a 10-2, 11-1 season. There's no conference championship for them because they're an independent, and they can make the playoffs. Coming in at number 8, we have Penn State. Penn State is your perennial 10-2 team. Every single year, they go 10-2. The only difference is now 12 teams get in the playoffs. If they go 10-2 this year, coming out of the Big Ten, they're going to make the playoffs. You have Drew Aller. You have one of the deepest running back rooms in the country, a great 1-2 punch. They have a lot of skill at wide receiver. They had the number 1 overall yard per game defense last season. They have a lot of starters coming back, so they're going to have a top 10 defense. Their offense was not good last season. They have a new scheme this year. As long as they're top 50 offense, they're going to go 10-2, and they're probably going to make the playoffs. Coming in at number 9, we have Michigan, the defending national champs. With Michigan, they deserve to be number 9 because they are the defending champs. But outside of that, they lost practically their entire starting team from last year. They only have one player coming back as a starter on offense last season. They do have about 5 defensive players coming back. They're going to have a great defense. That's what they do. They're very skilled in the trenches on the offensive line, on the defensive line, and their linebacking core. They're going to be good there. They're still going to be deep there, but Harbaugh's gone. J.J. McCarthy's gone. Sharon Moore takes over as the head coach. You're going to have a new starting quarterback. Lots of changes there. Plus, you have the off-the-field stuff going on right now. They have a lot of issues with the NCAA. Perhaps that could kind of cloud the season for them. But I wouldn't be surprised if this season goes 9, if they go 9-3 this season. So they could be a borderline potential make one of those last playoff spots. I don't think they will, but if they squeezed in, that is also very possible. Coming in at 10, we have Florida State. So for Florida State, they practically also lost their entire starting roster from last season. They sent a lot of players off to the NFL. Really good team last season. They had some injuries there at the end. They're bringing in DJU at the quarterback position. He's going to be a good quarterback, serviceable quarterback. He's not going to win a Heisman. He's not going to light it up on the stat sheet, but he's going to get touchdowns. He's going to run, and he's not going to have too many turnovers. This is a very good team. They will have a very good defense with a really good defensive line that's going to keep them in almost every single game. And their schedule's not too bad this season. As long as they make it to the ACC championship, win the ACC championship, then they get it in. Then they get into the playoffs. That's really all that matters. Outside of that, we have number 11. We have Missouri. So Missouri had a top 30 offense last season, had a top 30 defense. They have Cook back at quarterback. They did lose Baker as the defensive coordinator. This team has the easiest schedule in the SEC. They almost play none of the big teams. They do play Bama Outside of that, it's kind of a cakewalk. They could easily fall into a 10-2 season and potentially find themselves in the SEC championship. And that's without really losing any of their tough games. If they just beat the easy games they have, they could go 11-1 just because there's really no tests outside of one or two games the whole season. This is their easiest schedule they've had in decades. So they just have to win the games that they're supposed to win, and they have a shot to make the playoffs. Coming in at number 12, we have the Utah Utes. So Utah, they moved from the Pac-12 to the Big 12 this season. They're the highest ranked team in the Big 12. Cam Rising is back at the quarterback position. He did miss all of last season. They still won 8 games last year. Kyle Whittingham, as the head coach, is the second longest tenured head coach in all of college football. He wins 9-10 games every single season with 3-star players. One of the best coaches at player development there is. Their defense is going to be solid, especially on special teams. They're going to be able to run the ball. Cam Rising can be the difference maker. He is the team that I pick to win the Big 12 as of right now, preseason, as long as they live up to the expectations they have coming into this year. So they just have to win the Big 12 and they're in the playoffs. But if they still go 10-2 or 11-1, they'll probably make the playoffs anyways. After that, number 13, we have LSU. So LSU lost a lot of pieces from last year. They lost Ken Denbrock as the offensive coordinator. They lost Jaden Daniels as the quarterback, who did win the Heisman last season. They lost Malik Neighbors, first-round wide receiver pick, one of the best wide receivers the last few years in all of college football. But their defense was atrocious last season. They had like the number 80th defense in the country. They obviously have Baker coming over as the defensive coordinator. If he can get them into the top 50 this season, Nussmeier will be able to sling it at quarterback. They're going to score points. They're going to move the ball. But how improved will their defense be? As high as they go, that all depends on how improved their defense is this year. Coming in at 14, we have Clemson. Clemson, great team. Dabo Swinney. But again, the question is the offensive side of the ball. They had a top 10 defense last season, especially in the trenches, but offense was the issue. Klubnik at quarterback, Maffa at running back. They have a little better wide receiver core than they've had in probably about 3 to 4 seasons. Can they adapt to Riley's scheme? Can they get the air raid going? Can Klubnik actually live up to his 5-star quarterback expectations coming out of high school? If they just get the offense to a top 40 offense, this is easily a 10-2, 11-1 ACC championship caliber team, but we need to see more out of Klubnik. Coming in at 15, we have Tennessee. So the Tennessee Volunteers, very talented team. You have Josh Heupel as the head coach. He's going to light it up. He runs the air raid. You have Nico taking over as quarterback, starting out the season as a starting quarterback. He's going to flourish in this air raid system. This is an air raid, but they run the ball extremely well. They have a good line. They have Squirrel White at wide receiver. They had a top 30 defense last season. So as long as they live up to the defense they had last year, the offense is going to be much improved. Nico is way better than Joe Milton. This is a very talented team, and they're kind of an outside potential team to make the playoffs. So keep your eye on the Volunteers this year. Coming in at 16, we have Oklahoma. Oklahoma, a lot of people don't want them here in this position. They don't think they're going to finish this season in the top 25. I think Vegas has them coming in at 7.5 wins. It's pretty low, but they have a brutal schedule. They're new to the SEC, and they play a lot of the power teams in the SEC this year. It's a gauntlet that they have to run through. Very good team last season. The offense is going to do well. They have the new 5-star quarterback taking over. They're going to be able to move the ball. They have the running game. They have great wide receivers. They have a good offensive line. Their defense under Brent Venables has been getting better every season. He got them into the top 50 last season. They're going to be top 40, top 30 this year. They're going to get better every season. He's top 10 recruiting and transfer portal classes every year that he's been the head coach. Do not underestimate this roster. It's number 11 in the country, according to ESPN, for 4 and 5 stars. They deserve to be ranked here, but just due to their schedule, I don't know if they're going to be able to finish the season ranked where they started the season. Coming in at number 17, we have Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State, Mike Gundy, the number 1 most tenured head coach in all of college football. Every year, you get the same product. 9, 10 wins every year with 3-star players. And he has the best running back in all of college football. He has Gordon back at the running back position, had 21 touchdowns last year, 1,750 yards. They're going to be able to run it. They have a great offensive line. a senior-laden offensive line. Just can they get better at the quarterback position? He was the main thing that held them back last season. The wide receiver should be better. The offensive line should be better. With a better offensive line comes a better run game, so that should open up some holes for the quarterback. They deserve to be ranked here, and they're kind of an outlier to also potentially win the Big 12. You kind of have the favorites. You have Utah, you have Oklahoma State, and you have Kansas State. So they could also potentially make a run at one of those guaranteed playoff spots. Coming in at number 18, we have Kansas State. That's another Big 12 team, very talented team, very good head coach, deep running back room. They have Avery coming in as the quarterback. This is his first year starting from the jump. They have a good wide receiver room. They play good defense. They don't play great defense, but they play solid, sound defense. They're an easy 10-2 team. 10-2 in the Big 12 could get you into the Big 12 championship. Like I said, your favorites in the Big 12, Utah, Kansas State, and Oklahoma State. Any one of those three could win the Big 12 this year. Coming in at number 19, we have the Miami Hurricanes. So the Miami Hurricanes have the number 10 overall roster, according to ESPN, for 4 and 5 stars. They're going to have a top 20 offense this year. They need to get the defense to being a top 30 defense. I think they were around number 35 last season, so they just have to get a little better. You have Cameron Ward coming in as the quarterback. You have Damian Martinez taking over as the running back, one of the better running backs in all of college football. Cam Ward was the number 1 transfer portal quarterback in all of college football. He's going to make this roster that much better. They have one of the deeper running back rooms and one of the best wide receiver cores. Mario Cristobal just has to get out of his own way, and this team could make a run at the ACC championship. For your ACC favorites, you're going to have Florida State, Clemson, and Miami. It's probably going to be one of those three that wins the ACC and gets the guaranteed playoff spot. Coming in at number 20, we have the Texas A&M Aggies. The Aggies also have a top 10 roster. They're loaded with 4 and 5 star players, but they can just never get everything on the same page. Something always goes wrong every single season, but it's not due to lack of talent. Jimbo Fisher is gone. They bring in Elko as the head coach. He's revamping this team, changing the roster, changing the scheme. Talented group, Connor Wegman back at quarterback. He could be the difference maker. Their schedule's not too easy starting out the year with Notre Dame, but I think they could easily walk into an 8-4 season, get a good bowl game, win it, and finish the year with 9 wins. That's going to finish you ranked. So they're probably going to finish the year close to around where they started, which is a really good first season for Mike Elko. Coming in at 21, we have Arizona. So Arizona, they won 10 games last season. They definitely deserve to be ranked in the top 25 to start the season. Talented roster. They have Fafita at quarterback, but they lost their head coach. 66% of they have for returning production this season. That's one of the best in the country. They're talented on offense. They had a solid defense last season. We just don't know how they're going to do. They have a new coach, so that's a new scheme. So we don't know how the players are going to adapt for the scheme. That's the only knock that we have on them is the unknown. Coming in at number 22, we have Kansas. So just like Kansas State, Kansas is a very talented team, one of the best running back rooms led by Neal. They're going to be able to run the ball. They play average defense, so they'll keep the game close. At the quarterback position, the biggest question is Daniels. Daniels is hurt every single season, has not played a full season yet in his college football career. If he can play a full season, he can run, he can throw. He's a difference maker. If he stays healthy, if he plays as he always does, he could potentially get Kansas to a Big 12 championship and get this to a 10-2 team. If not, they might be sitting at that 9-3 status, which probably isn't going to be good enough to get them into the Big 12 championship, but it will be good enough to get them to finish the season in the top 25. Coming in at 23, we have the USC Trojans. A lot of people don't want them ranked. Vegas has them coming in at 7.5 wins to start the season. Very talented team on offense. You have Lincoln Riley, the best offensive mind in college football history. You have Miller Moss taking over as the quarterback. You still have Branch at the wide receiver position. On defense, Lynn is taking over as the defensive coordinator. Their Achilles heel has been their defense has been a complete joke under Lincoln Riley. But with Lynn taking over, he bought the Bruins from number 88 to number 18 in one season. If he can in any way just get the Trojans from the 90th offense to the 50th offense, they could potentially make the Big Ten championship. That's how good their offense is when you have Lincoln Riley calling plays. Just have a serviceable defense. That's all you need, and you could win games. They're probably going to finish the year 8-4, 9-3 at best, but that's really good. And for the Trojans, that's going to keep you in the top 25. Coming in at 24, we have NC State. They always have a solid defense. They always run the ball well. They always have a good offensive line. Schedule's not too bad this year. They have one of the easier schedules in the ACC, and a lot of people has them as an outlier to potentially make the ACC championship. Coming in at 25, we have the Iowa Hawkeyes. I kind of have a love-hate relationship with Iowa. Kirk Ferentz, great coach, but he's led the offense to be abysmal, basically. They had the number 125th offense in the country last season. That is pathetic. They still had a top 10 defense. Had their offense just been able to get a couple first downs, they could have potentially made a run at another Big Ten title to try to win a Big Ten title. But their offense is just always a complete joke. There's no need for it to be that way, but he did fire the coordinator, who was his son, of course. They say they're going to throw the ball a lot more this season. We'll have to wait to see it to make sure that that actually happens. But Iowa, they're going to have a top 10 defense if the offense can just be serviceable. Top 60, top 70, top 100, they could potentially make an outside run at the Big Ten championship. So some of the other teams you have that just barely missed the top 25, you have Louisville under Jeff Brom. They won 10 games last season. They did lose a lot of their players to the draft, but they've been working the portal hard. They're probably going to finish the year top 25. A very talented roster still. You have Virginia Tech. They've made great advancements going forward. They run the ball well. They have an outside chance to finish the year in the top 25. You have Boise State at 47. Boise State, 5-star quarterback coming in. Very talented roster. Not a hard schedule. They can finish the year top 25. SMU should definitely be ranked right now in the top 25. Stone is back at quarterback. You have Rhett Lashley. You have Knighton. You have a top 30 offense, top 30 defense returning from last season. They're going to be a very talented team. They're going to finish the year top 25, and they have one of the easier schedules in the ACC still. So that's our breakdown. That's our reaction to the AP poll top 25 that just came out. If you have any comments, drop them below, and I will make sure to respond. Thank you.